Hey guys, this is me, Kevin Murphy, on my channel called Narcissistic Abuse, Learning Who I Am Again. In this video, I'm going to talk about how us narc survivors hate loneliness. We despise loneliness with a passion to the point where we hook up with people who are not good for us. We hook up with people that are toxic to us, and people that will essentially delay us from our own healing. So I want to talk about an experience that I had when I lived on the West Coast. I'm originally from New Jersey. I moved from New Jersey to the Seattle, Washington area in 2010 to do an intern program with the church out there. It was an intern program. It was actually at Bible college. So we took a lot of Bible classes and we did a lot of community service oriented projects and really worked hard to serve the community and worked on our relationship with God in the process of being out there. So while I was out there during the program, I worked at the church, as a janitor. I worked at with all because it was a bunch of us. So it was a bunch of us from different parts of the country who did this intern program, and all of us pretty much gave up our lives. Like I had a full-time job, had a car, had my family, and I left all of that to do this program. And a lot of people that I did this program with have some of the same stories. But it was an awesome program, and I got a lot out of it. But while I was while I was out there, our graduation was coming up, and I knew that my family could not fly out or wouldn't fly out to see me graduate. And it meant a lot to me because a lot of people who did the program had their families come fly out, or some of them even live locally, so a lot of their families were able to travel by car to come and see their kids graduate. And so there was this guy that I worked with at the time, um, in the church. He did the program about 3 or 4 years before I did, and he seemed really, really, really cool. And we talked quite a bit, here and there, when I was at church there, and I would run into him, but we weren't like really good friends. We would just chat, and we were just pretty much mere acquaintances. And so he was asking me, "Are you excited about, this graduation coming up? Or are you excited about, leaving interns and all that other stuff?" And I said, "I'm not really excited because, like, I don't, my family's not going to be able to make it out. I don't have anybody to really support me to come out to see me graduate." So he was like, "I'll come and support you. I'll come and, watch you graduate." And so he did just that, and we went to a party after. They had a huge after party that the interns threw, and we started hanging out a little bit after that. And so I would I would say I I was really trying to get close to this person and trying to be friends with this person, on a deep level. And they weren't resistant to it, but they were, looking back on this situation, I know that it wasn't the healthiest situation. It wasn't the healthiest relationship. And I look back on how I was acting and behaving, that kind of fueled that toxicity and that unhealthiness. So during that summer, I would text this person constantly and ask them, can we hang out? Can we do this? Can we do that? I'm bored. I'm lonely. I'm this, that, and the other. And I was coming across to this person as very needy, as very insecure, and very unsure of himself. And I was looking for my identity from this person because he came to my graduation. He came and, supported me. So that means he's going to be, he's going to always be there for me. He's going to always come when I need him to come. And so I feel that, I developed a soul tie with this person. And it's just like I talked about yesterday in the soul tie video that we when we grow up in homes that are very toxic, very narcissistic, and things like that, we start to, that's our programming. That's what we know. So we go into the world looking for people that remind us of our dads, remind us of our moms, remind us of our whoever the narcissist was in our life. We will try to hook up with that person. So this person reminded me so much of my dad, because this guy lived with three, let me say two, I think he lived with three other guys. And he, as we were becoming friends, or we were becoming better friends, um, a lot of red flags started going off. And I was ignoring them because I was desperate for friendship. I was desperate for belonging. I was desperate for this person's approval and acceptance. And so he would say things like to me, like, "Oh, I rule all of them. They listen to me, and they do what I say." And I'm like, huh? Do I really want this person to be my friend? Now, mind you, I was 25 at the time, and this person was 30. So he was 5 years older than me, behaving this way. And I met these guys, and he wasn't lying. He had rule over these guys. And so they pretty much would do what he asked them to do. This guy was incredibly tall. Like, he was 6'10". He was very, very, very tall. And he towered over me, and I'm tall myself, and he towered over the other guys he lived with. So he threw his weight around. I truly believe this guy was a narcissist, because he was constantly comparing himself to other people. He himself was a gossip. So if you haven't noticed the theme of my videos, it seems like I attract people who excessively gossip. And so he gossiped a lot about friends I had, people around their church. He would talk about how they dress and things like that. And my biggest thing is, the person who gossips with you is the person who gossips about you. And so I would go over to this person's house. I mean, every day I was texting him. I would literally text this guy every single day. Texting him, how you doing? Are we cool? Like, I needed constant reassurance from him. I needed to make sure that he was, again, it's that soul tie. I needed to make sure he wasn't going anywhere. I had to make sure that he was, he was always there, and things like that. And I'm gonna be blunt, and I'm gonna be very frank, but from the outside looking in, if someone on the outside saw what I was doing, and the kind of relationship that he and I had, they would think that we were gay, or we were in a relationship, a romantic relationship. So but as I said yesterday, soul ties are not just formed with boyfriend, girlfriend, or gay relationships, or things like that. It can be friends, family members. And I mean, I didn't have feelings for this person, and I don't think this person had feelings for me, but it was it was just the intensity of the situation. It was the fact that he came to my graduation. He was there for me. So I need him to be there for me all the time. And during that time, I knew nothing about narcissistic personality disorder. I knew nothing about borderline personality disorder. I knew nothing about dependent personality disorder. I knew nothing about any of those things. And so I was just pretty much operating out of my own pain and out of my own experience. And I would literally, I would, he would say things like, "Oh, I have people follow me around everywhere, and you can follow me around too, and and tag along with me everywhere I go." So I was doing that. I was following this guy everywhere he was going. Um, like I said, I was constantly texting him. I hope you're having a good day. I hope that everything is going well, or any little thing that was going on in my life, I had to let him know. I shared with him, you know, issues that I had in my own personal life. He shared issues that he had in his own personal life. It was a very, very codependent relationship. And what he told me, he said he likes the fact that this is how I could tell he was narcissistic through the gossiping. And he told me that he liked the fact that I was texting him every day. And so one day or that summer, I was feeling really, really, really crappy, and I told this guy that how I was feeling is something happened with my with my grandmother or whatever, and I was telling him about it, or it might have been something that went wrong with my parents. And I poured my heart out to this individual, and I told him that you're like a brother to me. You're a really close friend, and I said I love you as a brother, and you're like a big brother to me. And he told me that that's sweet and that's touching, but I don't consider you one of my close friends. And I was like, okay, and I mean I was pissed. And I remember sending him these really nasty text messages saying that, you're an asshole, and you're this and you're that and all this other stuff. And so somehow we made up, and he apologized, and I apologized for calling him an asshole and sending him those bad texts. But I remember I was making pretty decent money, and even though I was working for the church, and we had the same job, but he told me the story that he wasn't paying on his student loans, and I think he defaulted on his student loans, and that he wasn't doing too well financially. So I gave him money, to buy food and things like that. I was giving him money on a regular basis. I was also cooking dinners and cooking food I mean, it's me doing this video is, I'm not gonna lie, this me doing this video today is very difficult, because it's hard for me to believe that I was ever in this place. It's hard for me to believe that I was ever in this place of bondage, and being in this place of neediness and codependency and things like that, because I can't imagine myself ever being in a situation like this again. But I'm doing this video to help other people, other codependents out there who feel like these kind of relationships are okay, and think that they're special, and that the more they do, they're going to be they're going to be loved. So yeah, this was classic codependency. And we picked up on where we left off, and I was like, and not only that, I after he said that, I felt like, well, I gotta work harder for him to consider me a close friend. I gotta do, like the human doing. Like I had to do. And so I was cooking dinner for him. I was giving him money. I was putting gas in his car. I was, texting him every day. I was giving him tons and tons and tons of narcissistic supply, bombarding him with narcissistic supply, while I was getting nothing out of the friendship. Like he wasn't calling me, he wasn't texting me, he wasn't doing any of those things. I was doing all of the work in the friendship. And so to make a long story short, the friendship somehow came to an abrupt end. I snapped. I started noticing that my needs weren't getting met in the friendship, and I find out that there was this really ghetto. Oh gosh, this girl. Oh my gosh, this girl was awful. Like um, she thought she was ghetto and she thought she was hood, but she really wasn't. She wore her hair slicked back in a ponytail, had a nameplate with her name on the thing, and these big earrings with her name in the earrings and things like that. He was seeing that he was at the tail end of our friendship. He started seeing this girl, and the girl was real loud and she was real obnoxious and things. I did not. She did the intern program with me. I did not like this girl. And she was like, I hate to I'm not a racist person. I don't mean to throw race in this, but this was a white girl trying to act like a black girl. And so she had her Timberland boots and she started walking tough and things like that. And I think it was her that, and I thank her to this day, even though she was awful. I thank her to this day because if it probably was her that kind of got me out of that toxic friendship. But I just feel that as survivors, we have to be very careful who we let into our lives. We have to embrace the loneliness. We have to stop just letting any old body into our circle. We have to think of ourselves as special enough to say, they have to earn a place into our lives. And I am so thankful and I'm so grateful to God that I learned about narcissistic personality disorder. I'm so thankful and grateful to God that I do not have any narcissistic friendships in my life anymore. I don't. And I know how to spot a narc. My narc dart goes off in a flash. And I'm not sure if this girl was a narcissist or what, but she was just, oh, I mean, she was loud and they fed off of each other. And eventually, I mean, the girl got married and she moved, not to him, but he ended up breaking up with this girl and this girl ended up getting married. I think she changed her life around and she's not as ghetto anymore. She still got it in her from what I hear, but she's not as bad. I don't know what ever happened to this guy, but she was bad. But you know, I went from relationship to relationship to relationship to relationship, and they were all toxic because I hated being alone. I hated myself so much to where I didn't feel comfortable with myself. I didn't feel comfortable with being alone. And us codependents will jump in from one toxic relationship to the next and continuing to delay our healing because we feel that we need to be by ourselves, because society tells us that we need to be with somebody. Society tells us that we need tons and tons and tons of friends. And I'm going to tell you, friendship is very, very, very important. But um, a wise lady told me that it's not the quantity of your friendships, it's the quality of your friendships. And she's totally right, because I didn't look at the quantity of my relationships. I looked at the I mean, I didn't look at the quality of my relationships. I looked at the quantity. And well, I guess I looked at the quality too. But I looked for quality in and not so quality people. And this guy, he had his own problems. I mean, the girl that he was seeing at the time, she had her own problems. And so I was trying to be friends with these people because I felt that somehow I needed to I needed to not be alone. And see, when you hate yourself and you dislike yourself and you loathe yourself, you bring that energy into those relationships with people. And you can and I don't bash this guy or this gal or anything like that. I take full responsibility for my own behavior. I should not have been texting that guy like that. It was not a healthy relationship, friendship at all. It was very, very, very codependent. Um, I should have been, I didn't know who I was, and I was looking for him and that girl to define who I was. And when they failed to do that, then I was always disappointed. When he told me that I wasn't one of his closest friends, and he said that in front of everybody in the house that night, that was a deal breaker. You got to know what your deal breakers are. You got to know when to hit the road, or get them to hit the road, because those things are inappropriate. I should not have been giving him money. I should not have been cooking him dinners. I should not have been so highly invested in a relationship like that. And like I said yesterday, there's nothing wrong with having close friends and having people in your life like that. But when you have people who are just take, and that's what he was doing. He was just taking, and then he's gonna get a gal that is oh my gosh, like that is just as toxic as he is. Then you got a problem. Then you have to look within yourself and say, what am I doing? What energy am I giving off that's attracting these types of people in my life? And so yeah, like it's I mean, so what I did was I talked to my pastor at the time, at the church, who led the intern program. And I mean, oh my gosh, this guy was down to earth. He was my dude. And he he did not reinforce my problems. He did not let me feel sorry for myself. He did not say, "Oh, there, Kevin. It's gonna be okay. Oh, there, Kevin. You need to lick your wounds." And no, 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 no. He wasn't like that. He pretty much said, "Dude," and I think he said it just like this. He's like, "Dude, you need to really get your shit together and pull." Like, this guy, he was a pastor, but he was down to earth, and he did not take crap from anybody. And he came across a little intimidating, but I he is a huge part of my recovery, of why I started my channel as well, and why I am the way that I am today, because I have learned from him that I don't need to, I don't need to live in the past. I don't need to just stay stuck in feeling sorry for myself. And he didn't let me do that. And he basically told me, you need to get your stuff together. You need to move on. And that's exactly what I did. And I moved on, and I made new friends in Seattle. I'm still cool with, and I'm going to go visit them in June.